Threw him back in the cell.
No!
Okay, no, you're right. You're right. Simmer down. And out of the jungle undergrowth bursts a forest. The craziest, scariest, not a cow, Steven. We're going to start with a story of love and of loss. It's a story of a second grader who fell in love with another second grader. And to help me tell this story, I invite to the stage our very own Jehoshaphat. Or Jesse. There we go. Jesse, I turn things over to you. Tell us the tale of Ferdinand.
This is perhaps the most tragic tale of a second grader that you will ever experience. And today was a very special day in little Ferdinand's life because today was not just any day, it was Valentine's Day, and he indeed did have a crush on little Susie, one of his classmates at school. And so he dressed up in his finest weird off green color tie that he could find, and he did the most romantic thing that little second grade Ferdinand could think of. He wrote a great big Valentine's Day note to Susie, and he cut it out to make it look like a heart. And in it, he wrote, "Dear Susie, you are as pretty as a pretty pink flower." From Ferdinand. He just thought that was the most romantic thing that he could do. His heart was beating out of his chest as his mom... As his mother dropped him off for school that morning, and he ran across the street after he checked both ways for traffic, and he ran down the hallway, hid the Valentine's Day note in her locker, and then waited for Susie to come and find it. And he hid down the hallway, and before long, little Susie arrived at school, prancing with a great big smile on her face, and she opened that locker, and she pulled out that note with a slightly puzzled look on her face. She was not expecting this, and she opened it up, and a smile creased her mouth once more as she began to read, and then slowly that smile turned into a frown, and before Ferdinand he couldn't believe it. She was sobbing and crying, and she threw the note on the ground and ran off down the hallway. Ferdinand was perplexed and confused.
I'm perplexed and confused.
He didn't know what either of those meant, but he was.
What do they mean? What do I mean? What is life all about?
He was having an existential crisis, but...
I don't know why I exist!
Perhaps he had said something offensive, so he picked up the letter and he read it. "Dear Susie, you are as pretty as a pretty pink flower," from Ferdinand.
I even spelled her name right. I spelled it with a Z. Z-U-Z-I-E.
Before he could ponder this any further or contemplate life's great mysteries,
I must ponder it.
Susie came back, and in tow she dragged the principal of the school. And the principal pointed right at Ferdinand and he said, "Did you write this horrible note?" Ferdinand could do nothing but confess his name was on the note, so he nodded his head. And the principal said, "You're come with me, young man," grabbed him by the back of his jacket, took him to his office, slammed him down in the chair opposite of his desk, and he said, I'm gonna have to call your mother and see what she has to say about this."
We're gonna have to call your mother and see what she has to say about this.
Hello?
Hello, is this Ferdinand's mother?
It is?
Are you aware of what your son wrote this fine Valentine's Day?
I know he wrote a Valentine's Day letter.
Do you, perchance, know the contents of this letter?
No.
He, your son, called Susie as pretty as a pretty pink flower.
He didn't.
He did.
I disown him.
I would, too. Just what I wanted to hear.
And the principal hung up and he informed Ferdinand,
Ferdinand?
Your mother has disowned you.
Your mother has disowned you!
Ferdinand didn't know what that meant, but it didn't sound good.
It must be bad.
It is bad, the principal informed him.
I must ponder these things.
And the principal decided there's only one thing to be done. We've got to call the police.
We're gonna call the police.
Hello?
Is this the police?
It is?
I have a second grader here.
Oh, no.
Yes. He called a little girl as pretty pink Flower!
He didn't.
He did!
We've got a squad car on their way right now to arrest him.
Beto, Beto, Beto!
And in 30 seconds flat, the police officer came in, grabbed little Ferdinand, cuffed him. And threw him in the back of the squad car, took him downtown. And then they got to the precinct and they took him out of the squad car. They threw him in the jail cell. And then pulled him back out of the jail cell.
Why?
And uncuffed him. And then threw him back in the jail cell.
No!
And then forgot that he didn't read him what they were arresting him for, so pulled him back out of the jail cell. Told him that he was going to be in prison for 50 years.
50 years in prison! I can't even count to 50!
Threw him back in the cell.
No!
Realized he hadn't frisked him, so pulled him back out.
Trying to get a phone in, huh?
So searched him, made sure he didn't have anything.
Do you have anything? Oh, no, gotta take the time.
Then threw him back in the cell. Slammed the door. Threw away the key. And left. Little Ferdinand couldn't believe it. He was going to be here. He was going to miss his 13th birthday.
No! Sweet 13. The worst year in everyone's life, but we all look forward to it.
At this moment in the story, you may have assumed that just Jesse and I, Jehoshaphat, were going to tell this story. You're wrong. I'm going to look to you to decide what happens next to Ferdinand. Listen, there are possible bad things that can happen. And if you vote wrong on what Ferdinand does, it's your fault. So, to start this vote off, I look to these three people right up front. You look wise, you look smart, intelligent. Here's Ferdinand's options. Ferdinand can either serve all 50 years, or he can break out and make it to his 13th birthday. What do you say? You have 10 seconds to pick and confer amongst each other. You can try to influence their decision starting now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. You've decided? Your decision is?
Breakout.
She said that with such fervor.
This is a Bible camp. You're supposed to be our moral compass.
Remember, the way this story... She said it, not me. The way this story ends, we now know who to blame. Ferdinand, sitting there in his cell, devastated, distraught, his life destroyed. He was wailing. There was gnashing of teeth. He was so entirely consumed with emotions. It is at this low point in his pitiful life that Ferdinand stood up, resolved.
Resolved.
He was confident.
What does that mean?
Figure it out. Ferdinand had an idea. He was going to escape prison. All he had to do was wait for the guards to go away. And so Ferdinand waited, and he waited, and he waited, and finally the last rounds of guards made their way around the prison cell, stomping the whole way. They left. There was a lot of them, but there's no more people in the cell. Ferdinand waits till the sun goes down.
Sploosh!
The scientific implications concerning. The sun is down.
Sploosh!
Ferdinand hops into action. He runs over to his bed. He pulls the bed aside. He pulls out of his pocket, actually, he had hidden it up his nostril. He pulls out a plastic spoon from the depths of his left nostril. Pretty good hiding spot. He then goes over to the side wall. He finds a little chink in the wall and he begins to insert the spoon and scrape at the side of the wall. Little bits of concrete begin to tumble out of the wall, making a pile on the ground. Ferdinand will not be deterred. He will not be stopped. He begins to hack and scratch and scrape. He's 3 feet in. He's 10 feet in. He hears a noise. He freezes for but a second when he realizes it's just somebody with sleep apnea. And so he continues his endeavors, digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And he's 30 feet in when he hears a small rat.
Mickey Mouse. What kind of a prison is this?
Ferdinand was not scared until he heard that. Now he's scared, but he continues. He will not be stopped. He continues his endeavors deep into the side of the cell wall when finally he breaks out on the other side. He bursts out into the clear, open sky. He looks up at the stars. He lets out a whoop. And then he runs down to the nearest street. He begins to run along the street. He makes his way and he finds a payphone. He goes over to the payphone. He pulls the phone off of the receiver. He inserts coins that he happens to find on the ground. The phone works. He gets on the other line. His best friend, Joey.
Joey!
What?
This is Ferdinand. You ain't gonna believe it. I'm out of the clink.
Ferdinand, you cannot be talking to me right now, man.
Why not?
They're looking for you. The FBI, CNN, NBC, all the acrostics are trying to get you. You're in big trouble.
I don't understand why. All I did was call little Susie as a pretty pink flower.
Ferdinand, I can't explain to you why you're in prison. Listen, they're on. I can hear them on the other end of the line.
Oh, this is a secure line.
I can hear them breathing. Listen, I can't talk to you any longer. They're tracing you right now. They're following the wire. They're gonna find you any minute. So listen, and listen close. Do you have a pen and paper? Write this down as fast as you can. At the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. Do you know where that is?
No.
Figure it out. At the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, there's an old wise man. You'll know him because he's old, he's bald, he's ugly, but you'll know that he's wise because he's old, he's bald, and he's ugly. Are you listening?
Yeah, but I don't have a pen and paper.
That's fine. Just pay attention. Climb to the top of the mountain. Talk to the old man, and he'll tell you why you were thrown in prison for calling little Susie as pretty as a pretty pink flower. Do you understand? Ferdinand, this is the last thing I can do to help you. Do not contact me again. This line is not secure. Good luck. We're no longer friends.
Goodbye, Joey.
Joey hung up. Ferdinand is now all alone, on his own, with one small snippet of hope.
I've got to go to South America.
He's not got to go to South America. He's got to go to Africa.
I've got to go to Africa.
Having corrected his bad geography, Ferdinand goes to the interstate. He goes up to the side of the road and he sticks out a thumb. He sticks a thumb the other direction. This is going to be a long ride, folks. Ferdinand puts his thumb
I
up.
don't understand. How hard is it for a second grader to hitchhike?
Puts his thumb up and forward and out and pointing up. Okay, fine. And at this moment, a guy pulls over and stops and does what any sane human being would do if they found a second grader on the side of the road. He picks him up. And he drives him to the Atlantic coast. He drops him off at the coast. He beeps.
Hey, wait, before you leave, is Africa that way? So,
Ferdinand is going on faith alone. He goes over to the ocean side. He takes a moment, he hesitates, wondering if this is a good idea. But then he spots a shower cap and a snorkel conveniently located on the Atlantic coast. He dons the cap, he dons the goggles, he prepares to swim the Atlantic, a feat never before accomplished by any human being. But remember, Ferdinand is no mere human being. Ferdinand escaped prison. He's an ex-convict.
wish I took swim lessons.
He hadn't even taken swim lessons. And so Ferdinand, noodle in hand, jumps into the Atlantic Ocean.
Splash!
He begins to swim as fast and as hard as he can. Along the way, he almost drowns, but manages to lift himself up out of the water and continue to swim. But it's at this moment, as he's cruising across the Atlantic Ocean, that he notices something. A fin. It's a shark fin. He's terrified. There's gnashing of teeth. He runs. He swims as fast as he can, trying to escape this crazy shark, but the shark is too fast. The shark reaches out and grabs a hold of his arm and bites his arm off. The shark needed to... The shark merely needed one taste to know that Ferdinand was not worth eating. Too high in cholesterol. And so the shark continues on, and Ferdinand...
He didn't like white meat.
Yeah. He said it, not me. Ferdinand continues to swim, using one arm, both of his legs, maybe his toes too, and somehow, some way, he crawls up onto the shore of Africa. He stands up and he notices in the corner a sign, and it says, "We'll work for food." Why did you bring your work? That's not the sign. That's your personal sign, Stephen. There, you are here. Africa.
I made it.
He made it. It's conveniently in English. Ferdinand's troubles aren't over, though.
I just gotta find the bald guy.
He thinks all it is, climb to the top of Mount Everest, find a bald guy. How hard can it be?
Wait. Mount Everest.
No, sorry.
That's in North America. What did I come here for?
Okay, no, yeah, you're right. You're right. Simmer down, man. Simmer down. Mount Kilimanjaro. I stand corrected. He just has to make it to Mount Kilimanjaro. But it's at this moment, as he muses on the simple task of climbing a mountain, when he hears the sound. Not that. He hears the sound of a leopard.
Meow.
Though it sounded like a domesticated house cat, Ferdinand was afeared still. There was gnashing of teeth. And out of the jungle undergrowth bursts forth the craziest, scariest, not a cow, Stephen! Bursts forth from the undergrowth of the jungle is not a wolf! A leopard!
Hee-haw.
Okay. You got one more chance, Stephen. There it is! The scariest, fluffiest, slightly not intimidating, but Ferdinand's still scared. Leopard. That's better. Leopard. It is at this moment that Ferdinand has a decision to make. Does Ferdinand tame the leopard? Or does Ferdinand eat the leopard?
Is there a third option?
No. At this moment in the story, we're going to turn to the audience to vote. We've learned about this side of the room. And so we turn, for redemption, we hope, this side of the room, this entire table. You must decide, does Ferdinand tame the leopard or eat the leopard? You have 10 seconds starting now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. You're decided? Tame. Now that's how you moral compass.
They got two bad options. They got a good and a bad one.
This is about you, but you don't get a say. Ferdinand stares down the leopard. He's afeared at first. He's ready to gnash teeth once again. But he remembers a story his mom once told him.
If you ever see a leopard, run really fast.
No. Called Black Beauty. The story of a horse tamed on the beaches somewhere with seaweed. And so Ferdinand finds seaweed to tame the leopard. He holds out seaweed and approaches the leopard gingerly, carefully, holding out, trying not to show fear, resisting the urge to gnash those teeth. It is at this moment the leopard, to be continued later. Okay, quick. We need to. No, there's not. We left Ferdinand in a bit of a predicament, right? He was going to tame the leopard, and he does. He reaches out his seaweed, and he manages somehow, some way, with no arm, to tame the leopard. He then hops onto the leopard's back, who has now eaten the seaweed, is now happy, and squishes it. Leopard didn't last long, so he continues his trek up the mountain. He travels all the way up to the top. He gets to the top. At the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, he looks across the way and he sees the old, wise, very ugly, bald man. We said bald,
It's gotta be him.
not mulleted. That's just neck hair. Okay. So Ferdinand goes to talk to the old man. He wants to know, why was he thrown in prison for... Severely uncomfortable.
Is there another wise man?
This is your only chance. Ferdinand crosses a babbling brook. He crosses the rolling hills. He arrives at the edge of a road. He's about to ask the old man when out of nowhere a truck hits Ferdinand. And in that moment, dramatic effect, Stephen. In that moment, Ferdinand dies and is no longer alive because of a very simple truth. Number one, we know who to blame. Number two, he learned a very important lesson that day. Before crossing a road, look both ways. That's all there is to Ferdinand's story.
It's story time with Mr. Skit.
No, it's not. No. I know Ferdinand was a letdown, but this is worse.